Okay, welcome everyone. We are here in the least visited country in Europe, and also apparently the poorest, which for those who are following from my previous video, we were playing the game of guessing where Michael is. We're in the country of Moldova. And so Moldova, very little known to most people. Very, very few people come here, as evidenced by the fact that it's the least visited in Europe. Surprise, surprise. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about what this country is like. We're going to talk about residency. We're going to talk about citizenship. We're going to talk about taxes. We're going to talk about corporate stuff. So we're going to do a fairly big deep dive. Some of these videos I like to do in kind of multiple pieces, talking about taxes in one and residency in another, et cetera, et cetera. But in this particular case, because it's not the most popular country that you're likely to see, we'll dive in and cover as much of it as possible. Now, this being said, if you guys are interested in checking out other countries, I do all sorts of these every week, talking about various different countries from the tax standpoint, from the residency standpoint, where you should move, et cetera, et cetera. And so hit the subscribe button and notification bell to make sure you check out the future videos which are coming up on that subject, and go and check out some of the others on the channel. Appreciate you being here. Now, along this line, since Moldova is, surprise, surprise, it's the poorest country in Europe, that by consequence comes with the fact that it is also an inexpensive country. And so we've created for you a guide on the 10 best countries to go and relocate to, where you can get both a high quality of life and a low cost of living. And so that's a free guide. This is not one of them, but I will talk about this one anyway in relation to those sorts of things. In that guide, we go through all sorts of these details, and you can download that for free. So put it in the comments below in the description. You can click to download while it's available. So go and check that out. Okay, so now with that in mind, let's dive in and talk about Moldova. So as I was saying, one of the least visited countries, one of the poorest countries in the EU. This being said, I would say it's like remarkably better than a lot of people might think. I think if you were to go and you were to check out on YouTube, you would see some places that suggest it's kind of a complete dump, but this is actually not quite true. There are actually some fairly nice places. I'm in Chisinau right now. It's spelled Chisinau, but Chisinau is the way they pronounce it apparently. The language here is basically Romanian, although I would say that English is very well spoken, especially amongst young people. So I was fairly surprised. This is my first trip to Moldova. And yeah, fairly surprised. There's also a lot of Russian. And previously, from talking to and knowing people who were from here, the norm is that people from here will go and move to Romania or move to Russia in order to get better work prospects, etc., because it hasn't historically been that great. For some context, the GDP per capita is around 8,000 US dollars per year, but GDP PPP is like 18,000. So it tells you a little bit about the purchasing power parity and kind of the costs that you get. And I would say like some of the cheapest food that I've had anywhere, it's kind of the prices that you used to get back in the day in some Eastern European countries. For example, I think this is the first time in a long time that I've been able to get a piece of cake, nice piece of cake, for like 50 cents. So that's pretty amazing. Very, very affordable on the food side. Housing is not as cheap as one might expect, given some of these other things. I guess this is the way of the world today, is that you have real estate, just prices are high. And so it's not that it's high by, London standards or something, it's high by the local wages standards. So anyway, that is what it is. The airport is fairly small, but, fairly reasonable polish to it. I would say it's nicer than the Bulgarian the Sofia airport in Bulgaria, but smaller by quite a bit. And in general, this is a thing here, is that it's fairly difficult to fly into the country and out of the country. It's not very well connected. So I came via Riga. I'm leaving via Istanbul, and you can go and look out, check out all sorts of different places to go, but there are not that many direct flights. You typically have to exchange going from one place to another. So that is what it is. Residency-wise, there's not that many residency options that are fairly easy for people. So there's no golden visa, there's no digital nomad visa. That being said, it's not very difficult to get a visa here by setting up a company. So I have actually known some people who have gotten citizenship here, and totally different thing, and had residencies and stuff like that. That's a whole own conversation. lengthy thing. But for normal situations, it is quite easy to register a company here, show that it's an actual company, and get a residence permit on that basis. It's typically, about a 2-month process to go through, depending on what's going on, and not particularly expensive. It's also pretty good tax-wise. It's a flat 12% personal tax, so that's great. 12% corporate tax. However, there are some special regimes. There's free zones here. So you can get, if you actually operate through a free zone company, 3% or 6% or 9%, depending on what is going on. Most cases it will be 6%. However, you can also get a complete exemption if you invest for a period of a few years, if you invest a certain amount of money in the free zone, depending on how much you do. And so that's pretty cool. It's not an EEA country, so therefore not EU, and so you don't have the same payment processing options that you might get in some places. So that's not necessarily the greatest. There is dividend withholding tax of 6%, which is, again, not the most ideal. However, you are in a situation where the tax treaties, in certain cases, using holding companies can take that down to 0. And so that's an option. So actually, it's probably a little bit underrated as a place to have a company on some of these things. I mean, nobody talks about having a company in Moldova. And that's kind of a good thing because, for example, they're not on the Portuguese blacklists. They're not on a bunch of these blacklists where they're viewed as a tax haven. Nobody's really thinking of it that way. So this is a favorable situation to have for sure. And as I said, if you live here, you're in a situation that it is pretty decent. Now, some of the things that are issues are typically the normal rule is supposed to be, and this isn't always enforced and things like this, but that you're not supposed to be out of the country more than 90 days out of every 180 days. I think that's right. When it comes to not wanting to lose your residence permit. And that's like a pain, right? Let's just be clear. That's quite an annoying standard compared to what you get in many other places, but it is what it is. Let's see here. So you can get the citizenship, and they do allow dual citizenship. However, in most cases, it's not particularly easy. You're typically talking about 10 years of residency. The passport is it's like a medium passport. It's very comparable to Montenegro. So it has the EU, but it doesn't have Ireland, UK. It doesn't have Canada, US, Mexico, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Japan. It does have Russia. It doesn't have China. It lacks a few of the places in South America. And so, it's okay, but it's non-correlated. So that is kind of good. And as I said, it's somewhat below the radar. There are kind of unofficial ways that sometimes people can end up getting passports here, but that requires, special connections and all that sort of thing. So I'm not going to cover that in this particular video, but in theory, that is possible. And as I said, interesting capabilities there. You do need to learn Romanian in order to get the passport here. If you are coming here with family, dependents can be included, but common law spouses and gay spouses are not counted as dependents, so that doesn't work. You'd have to kind of do them separately. So, okay, but it's an extra cost and extra hassle, but can be done. It's more expeditious, so it's faster to get permanent residency. Instead of 5 years, you can do 3. If you're married to a Moldovan, all right, most people are not going to be, although, wonderful people. I would say that the culture is quite nice in this part of the world. It's just, it's a small place. There's not a lot of money, so there's not as much going on. So fewer people are generally going to choose to come and live here. And nothing against it in that regard, but it's just it's not exactly what most people are looking for. But, being able to do things with respect to having companies are maybe, and employing people are maybe, although small talent pool. So if you're looking for very specific skills, you're not typically going to find them here. But for, just employing people in general, perfectly reasonable to do that. The banking, I wouldn't recommend, typically. There's nothing particularly great about the banking here. You have all the concerns that you would have or expect in some place like this. Not to say that it's going to be terrible, but it's a third grade banking destination. So usually I would want to have banking somewhere else, which is of course possible to set up. In a lot of cases, it's something we help people with all the time. So if you want help with banking internationally, either for yourself or businesses, please reach out to us and we can help you go through that process. Yeah, I think it's attractive because it's off the radar. It's attractive because it's inexpensive. It's attractive because it is a place that most people are not going to think about or cause problems to. And so you can generally sort of stay out of the way. And it is like, it's fairly beautiful country. It's famous for the wine. I'd actually gotten to know about Moldova maybe first because of the wine in Canada. I had a friend who was Moldovan who imported wine from Moldova into Canada. And so they're like a very wine-centric country. It's, depending on your taste in wine, etc., you know, there's some spectrum. I probably prefer Georgian wine myself, but that's personal taste. And so, yeah, you can see accordingly. Fairly good culture, more cultural than you might expect for a place that is sort of this small, etc. And I would say worth visiting. If you get a chance, you will probably find that it is nicer than you would expect, or at least I certainly did. And yeah, let me know if there's any other questions, put them in the comments below, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next video.